I guessed the plot twist to this novel less than 10% of the way through my listen. Let's talk about that. Hello everyone, this is Grace with Blonde Buzzard Books, and today we are unfortunately talking about Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. As a warning, this video contains spoilers if for some reason you decide that you should read it. While I was snowed in for the weekend and desperate for something to read while I cooked and cleaned, I decided to consult Goodreads for a list of horror books that are set in the snow. Dead of Winter sounded like the most promising to me because who doesn't love a whodunit? So I popped it in, let it rip, and there's a lot to unpack here. The novel opens with Krista and someone named Kiernan stuck in the wilderness in the midst of a blizzard. They're desperately trying to get somewhere, but the mountain terrain and snow make it nearly impossible. It's clear that they care about each other, but we don't know their relationship. Eventually, they get separated and Krista is buried in a small avalanche. Fade to black. I felt like this book was failing right off the bat because I understand that starting in the middle of the action is like writing a book 101, right? But at the same time, I did not care at all what was happening to these characters. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where they were. I didn't know why they were there. I didn't know anything. And it goes on for they're in the snow for a good 2 chapters. It's 10 minutes of listening time of just them in the snow, fighting for their lives. And I don't know, babe. I feel like you need to tell me a little bit more. I understand having even just a little bit of exposition in there would help a lot. In the midst of them fighting in the snow, have the main character think to herself, oh man, this is the worst vacation ever. Give me something to work with. Well, they don't. They get separated. Krista's in the snow. It's chaos. We don't really know exactly what's happening. Fade to black, we cut to 6 hours earlier. Krista and Kiernan, who we now know is her boyfriend, are in a charter-style tour bus somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. That is all of the description that is given about the location of this novel, by the way. That's it. We're just in the Rocky Mountains somewhere. Okay. Whatever, girl. They're headed to an alpine lodge that's open to the public in the summer, but is closed in the winter, and you can only stay there by going through a private tour group like the one that they're with right now. After a lack of exposition in the first 2 chapters where we're so confused about what's going on, we get info dumped so much about Krista and Kiernan's relationship, and virtually none of it makes any sense. It's kind of fascinating, actually, how you can talk for so long about 2 people and also not really know anything about them. Krista tells the reader that she's flighty, disorganized, nervous, and kind of unsociable. Ever since her unexplained past trauma, she has just had a really hard time bonding with people, and a lot of really simple decisions in her life feel really confusing, and she just feels very all over the place. Kiernan, on the other hand, is organized and decisive and understanding of her problems. He's picked up the broken pieces of her life, and even though he also struggles with an unexplained past trauma, he's coping a lot better, and he has really straightened up her life in the 4 months that they've been together. She feels like he is kind of her anchor to the real world, and she feels a lot less crazy and a lot less, she feels a lot less squirrely with Kiernan around. For these reasons, she is not remotely concerned about the fact that she's pretty sure he's going to propose to her on this trip, even though they've been together for 4 months. Oh, okay. Moving a little fast here, are we? She's trying not to keep her hopes up, but she does have a gut feeling. She is going to have a lot of gut feelings throughout this book, and I'm not going to believe her about any of them. For good reason. Part of the reason that she is convinced that Kiernan is going to propose is because he's from the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains. Because that's all we know. He's from the Rocky Mountains. It would only make sense that he would propose to her on this trip that he planned to his homeland. Duh, obviously he's going to propose. So on to the bus they go with a small group of other people. I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 other people, and it honestly does not matter. None of these people matter. There are 8 or 9 passengers, and then their tour guide, Brian. After this exposition about her relationship, she starts talking about the people on the bus. She's kind of scanning them and giving us her description of them, her first impressions of them, and for some reason, she feels suspicious about every single one of them. Not a single person on the bus she thinks to herself, yeah, he's got a good vibe going. All of them, she thinks that something is weird. And she acknowledges that her unexplained past trauma might make her feel this way. It might cause her to not trust people. So already, we're kind of reading along with her, and we're like, okay, so you're just being paranoid. And I get that the whole reason that she is paranoid about all of these people is because it's designed to build suspense. Both in, again, talking about her unexplained past trauma and, what's all these people, right? By talking about her unexplained past trauma and the way she feels about all these people and that she feels nervous about them, that is setting us up for a whodunit mystery, right? Because that's what the book is. Come to find out, her suspicions of these other people make zero sense, though. That's part of the problem. We don't learn about what her unexplained past trauma really is until 150 pages or 6 hours of listening into the book. We don't know what it is, and so we just think, oh, she must have been through something really horrible and crazy, which she has. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the unexplained past trauma is, because it makes no sense that it would make her suspicious of other people. Her unexplained past trauma is a car accident where a truck driver, like a semi-truck, a truck driver's brakes failed and kind of caused her to run off the road a little bit on accident. And so by virtue, she kind of ran this other guy off the road, and he drove into a river and passed away. And that's very sad, certainly. But why would that make you distrustful of other people? If anything, you wouldn't be scared of the people on the bus. You would be scared of the bus itself, girl. What? Get with it. I don't know. This whole setup that everybody is suspicious is just really poorly executed and frustrated me a lot. So as they near the lodge, they have to stop the bus because there is a tree that's fallen down in the road. The tour guide explains that this is no big deal and he has a chainsaw for purposes exactly like this one. If he could just have a few volunteers, they will get the tree cleared out of the road, and then they will all be able to move on with their lives and go to the cabin. Now, this is just me complaining, and I don't care. Literally every other man, except for Kiernan, gets off the bus to help with the tree. Kiernan decides that he and Krista should go on a walk. Oh. Okay, so chivalry is dead and you have no gumption, no work ethic? Get out of my face. I hate you. I hate you already. What do you mean? What do you mean every other man on the bus is going to help with the tree and you're going to go on a silly little hot girl walk with your girlfriend? I hate you. So Krista and Kiernan go on their little hot girl walk. Kiernan is insistent that they should find somewhere with a really good view, that they can really look at the mountains. And Krista is apprehensive a little bit about going, so far from the bus. But Kiernan is from the Rocky Mountains, so it'll be fine because he knows what he's doing. And also, he's probably going to propose. So this is going to be their moment. She's going to get proposed to, and then they're going to have 2 whole weeks at this Alpine Lodge to revel in their new engagement. So she's like, it'll be fine. So as they're going on this walk, the weather is getting worse, and it's getting worse fast in a really unexpected way. But Kiernan keeps insisting that they press further into the woods, and he is just not going to let go, basically, until they get this perfect thing. Until he finds a perfect spot. Okay? So then we're kind of back to the very original sequence, where they are lost in the woods and they don't know what to do, and it's getting really snowy and blah, 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 and then Krista is buried under snow, and then fade to black. When she wakes up, she's in a very small 1-room cabin, and the entire group is there, except for Brian, the tour guide. She weakly calls out to Kiernan. He's kind of across the room from her. His back is turned. She calls out to him, and, she wants to talk to him. She wants to see him. She wants to make sure he's okay. Every time she calls his name, he's not listening. Well, finally, he turns around, and it's Brian, not Kiernan. Kiernan is not, in fact, there in the cabin. And at this part where she should have this horrible gut punch that Kiernan clearly didn't make it, she instead goes on a suspicious tangent about how much Brian and Kiernan look alike. She's like, oh, of course I thought it was Kiernan, because earlier when we were on the bus and I was looking at all the people, I actually thought to myself that Brian and Kiernan look a lot alike, especially in their stature and their size and in their shape. And really the only thing that's different about them is their hair color. If you saw them from the back, you would have really no idea. Girl, your boyfriend is DEAD dead. And you're like, this, there's just no emotion written into this scene. Even after she gets done, you know, with her whole tangent about how much Brian and Kiernan look alike, it still is really flat. She tells us that she is, like, shocked. But that's really all. And I'm like, okay, I would hope that you would be shocked. So she asks Brian, who she thought was Kiernan, where Kiernan is. And Brian explains that it is not going to be safe for them to go look for him. They are going to have to wait until the morning because it's gotten dark. And Krista was outside so long that she almost died. She has frostbite on her hand. Her whole hand is, like, super bandaged up because it's, like, rotting off, essentially. And so they're just going to have to wait, and they're just going to kind of have to sit there, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And she kind of throws a fit, but at the end, she's like, yeah, okay, yeah. Some of the other people in the cabin are already starting to say, Kiernan is for sure dead. Like, he's toast. You barely survived, and he is for sure dead by this point, because it's been several hours since we pulled you out of the snow. You just woke up, so it doesn't seem like it's that long, but it's been a long time. Like, he's probably dead. And she is insistent that no, he's not, because he's from the Rocky Mountains, and he is dressed much more appropriately than anyone else would be for this trip, because he's used to the really cold snow in the winter, so he knows what's up, and because of the fact that he's more adequately dressed than everyone else, surely he will have survived. Honestly, that is the most realistic part of the whole book for me. Her feeling like that does feel like the irrational rationale that you have when you are, you know, wanting to deny your grief. That makes sense. Everything else doesn't at all. So this premise is the exposition that sets them up to be in the one-room cabin for the rest of the novel. They are going to be picked off one by one for several days, murdered. At this point, the summary can be a lot less detailed because I don't think the author cared about the book itself being very detailed, to be honest with you. I'm not even going to bother with the characters' names, ages, personalities, etc., because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is they are all emotionless 2x4s who have almost no personality, and if they do, it's a very one-dimensional personality. And they're all, like, kind of halfway hiding something a little bit, like they're all being kind of coy about either their past or what they did for work or something along those lines, okay? They're kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do and how to react in this situation. Do they keep trying with the tree, except they never really talk about if the tree has been taken care of or not? Do they keep trying to push up to the lodge, or don't they? And when they're trying to figure this all out is when the first person dies. Oh, the horror. Okay? Their head is strung up in a tree, and their body is not found. Oh, it's just a little festive decoration, a little Christmas ornament. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm being nitpicky, and maybe this is an inappropriate criticism to begin with, but the actual horror in this novel is written really poorly. And by poorly, I mean it is not unsettling in the slightest. And maybe that is because I read quite a bit of horror, but I don't think so. I think the problem is this book was written without an understanding of what builds suspense in a novel, which is really awkward when you're writing a suspense novel. Actually, the best way I know how to describe it is Frankie's Shelf was talking about Verity by Colleen Hoover, and he said that book is written like a movie. It's written without the understanding that jump scares don't work in a book. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates, because it's not descriptive at all. She's like, oh my god, there's a head in the tree. what does the head look like? I need blood, I need guts, I need viscera. If you can't build suspension and like tension, then you gotta have gore to make people uncomfortable. Like, if the goal of your book is discomfort and like heart pounding, thudding, then you have to actually do something to make it feel that way. And Darcy Coates does neither suspense nor like gross discomfort. So it just kind of, you're like, oh my god, there's a guy in the tree. Like, you know? Anyway, so yeah. Brian's head, the tour guide, his head's in the tree. It is strung up there like a Christmas ornament. And now the passengers of the bus are left to fend for themselves. And they have to decide now what they're going to do. It's not up to Brian anymore because he's dead. While they're trying to figure this out, a set of human teeth appear arranged on the windowsill of the cabin, right by where Krista has kind of made her corner of the cabin. They've all kind of nested in different corners of the cabin, and of course, the teeth that appear are right next to Krista. She notices and counts that there are only 31 teeth on the windowsill, and this is a huge deal because Kiernan only had 31 teeth. It's like an inside joke between them that he only has 31 teeth because when they're kissing, she can feel the hole. Alright. So, she's horrified, obviously. Well, that's what she says. She tells us she's horrified by his teeth. To her, this is her confirmation that he really is dead. And also, between this and the head, it's really clear that whoever is the killer in their midst is sadistic and evil and horrible. So, for several more chapters, the girl who painted herself as incompetent under the pressures of such decisions as should we get apple juice or orange juice is operating really well under these circumstances. She is like doing sleuth detective work, doesn't seem to be super bugged by the fact that people around her are constantly dying and at any moment she could die as well. She is just doing her little sleuth detective work trying to figure out who the killer is. Right, but she's super flighty, disorganized, and insecure. But she's also the lead detective on this case. Alright. Yeah. No, yeah, that's good. In a really formulaic fashion, as soon as she decides that someone is the killer, their head appears in the tree. And you know what? Maybe I can't blame her for thinking that literally every single person is the killer at one point or another, because when they are all unfeeling planks of wood without personalities, it is kind of hard to tell. Because they all feel a little bit psychotic. Sorry. Although Kiernan's head never appears in the tree, they do eventually find his body on a trip back to the bus to grab some supplies, notably not the chainsaw. The chainsaw disappears. We never hear from the chainsaw again. Even the murder weapon, as we'll find out later, not a chainsaw. Okay. I digress. On the way back to the bus to get some supplies, they do find a headless body that is wearing Kiernan's clothes and has an engagement ring in the pocket. This should be, like, the most devastating, most horrific, horrible thing that you have ever read in your entire life, and I did not care at all. Did not care. And you know what, honestly, I'm not sure Krista cared that much either, because there's this, like, this is such a base criticism of any piece of writing, but it's very much just told to us and not shown how Krista feels. She says, oh, it feels so horrible. Oh my gosh, my whole future that I thought I was going to have with this man is gone. Okay. So despite this horrific revelation, she is still operating just fine. She's still doing her sleuth work. And the logistics of her sleuthing are so stupid, I am not even going to waste my time on them. It's actually ridiculous the way that they have her find out anything about anything. But she does find out one thing that is of value completely on accident, just through conversation with people. Everyone that is on this trip was involved in that car accident. Her unexplained past trauma, everyone there has the same unexplained past trauma, except for Kiernan. So obviously Kiernan is a victim in this situation because she, brought him on this trip, except not really because he brought her on the trip and he planned the trip, but regardless, he's a victim because he's not involved in this accident at all, and, she had him killed, basically. She's very sad about that as well, she tells us. Everyone was involved. The truck driver is there. There is a hopeless onlooker that just kind of was driving by it while it happened, and he got out of his car and kind of tried to help, but then kind of gave up because he couldn't really get to the car anyway. There are first responders there. The mechanic that worked on the truck's brakes is there. His name is Denny, and he will be important in a few minutes. Kind of. Yeah, every person that's there on that trip had played a part in the accident. And the other piece of information, I'm getting closer. The other piece of information that she finds out through this conversation is that all of them were given their tickets to go on the trip for free. Anonymously. All of them were given anonymous free tickets to go on a really expensive trip, and none of them thought, ooh, that sounds like a scam. Ooh, that sounds weird. Maybe I shouldn't go to that. Okay, sure. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, of course. After another couple of red herrings, a moment of chaos breaks out in which Krista finds herself to be one of 3 remaining survivors. She comes back into the cabin and she sees that one of them is really severely injured, and she's like trying to talk to him and help him and ask him who did this to him, when Denny, the mechanic, appears behind her with an axe, and it's very clear that his intent is to kill her. She panics and runs out of the cabin, running for her life, The sequence of her running for her life from Denny is so absurdly long. Maybe it was because I was just ready to get to the reveal where I knew I was right. But I was like, oh my gosh, please, can we move along with this? It was just long. And I think that's another kind of good example going back to that whole thing of like, I really do feel like this book was written like a movie. Like, when Darcy Coates was writing this, she was picturing the film adaptation. And not the novel that has to be good enough to get a film adaptation. Okay, so she's running from Denny in the woods in the snow in this super long sequence, and eventually she kind of half accidentally and half on purpose ends up at the lodge. This place where they were supposed to be the entire time. This place, she finds out that this lodge that has generators and phones and electricity is like less than a half day's walk away, which is kind of devastating. That I was like, okay, that sucks real bad, and that is pretty good writing. So she gets inside and she manages to call 911. She finds blueprints of the lodge to kind of run away from Denny, and so they're playing this game of cat and mouse in this big hotel for too long. Eventually she is downstairs on the first floor, and she can hear Denny's huge lumbering frame kind of above her, and she realizes that she's right next to a flight of stairs, and she thinks, oh my gosh, he's gonna come down the stairs and get me. Well, she hears his body fall to the ground, like maybe he fell over or something, and then his decapitated head rolls down the stairs to her. She's like, what? If Denny's not the killer, who could be the killer? And then, lo and behold, Kiernan steps down the stairs perfectly fine, completely unscathed and unharmed. And he's like, hey. And she's like, oh my god, Kiernan, you're alive. I was so worried about you. Not thinking for a moment, who would have just murdered Denny just now? Also, you're so distrustful of people, and you have so many of these intelligent gut feelings when your boyfriend in an empty building is the only person who could have possibly, explicably killed this person that you just saw die. Why are you not worried about that? Why is that not concerning to you? She literally runs up to him and is like, oh my god, Kiernan, I missed you. Are we sure about that? Okay, fine. Anyway, so yeah, Kiernan then proceeds to tell Krista that he did it. He's the killer. He orchestrated this whole trip and brought everybody here to get revenge for what happened to his brother. Because his brother was the guy that got run off the road and passed away in the lake, in the river, whatever. And that's it. That's the book. Then the police come and get him. The end. I tried in my synopsis of this to not necessarily make the killer so super obvious while I was talking about it, because if you don't plan to read this book or haven't read this book, I was hoping that I could maybe gauge where you figured out that he was the killer. Personally, I figured out that he was the killer as soon as he didn't want to help cut down the tree. I was like, nope. No. I was like, this dude who has experience in the mountains, he's probably done something like this before, wants to lead his girlfriend into the wilderness instead of helping the group for the betterment of the group. No. And then the entire book, his head does not show up in the tree. And no one is supposed to, like, everyone's supposed to think, oh yeah, that's fine. Why would his head be there? Like, that makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I think what's so frustrating about this novel is that everything that really is like a big calling card towards, like, it's so obvious that it's going to be Kiernan could be resolved. Why would you not have the trophies of people's death be like something that's not their face, something that's not their easily identifiable face being stuck in a tree? Why don't you make it, I don't know, their hands, or their, even like their forearm, and you can tell whose forearm it is because they're wearing a watch, or they're wearing a bracelet, or they have their nails painted, or blah 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 blah, or the tone of their skin, whatever. Something that is could conceivably be duplicated or like fixed in a, you know what I'm saying? It makes no sense. Literally what they could have done, what she could have done was had it be that all of their bodies were discovered and not their heads. Because then she could have Kiernan in this scenario, Kiernan being the killer, she being the author. I'm getting discombobulated because I'm upset. Okay? The author could have had it be that it's all their bodies instead of their heads. And then, because it's snowy and frozen over and icy, could have used tour guide Brian's body twice for Kiernan. And that would have been solved. Literally would have been solved. And I think if that had happened, if that red herring had been there, I would have believed it. And that's what's annoying, is that it just felt like a lot of it was really avoidable. And that's just frustrating. That's just frustrating. So anyway, I just wanted to get on here and complain about this book because I thought it sucked and I was annoyed. So, yeah. That's all that I have for you today. Bye!